I did psilocybin and it changed my life. It was like a full new path for me. And I have pretty much dedicated half of my teaching and education now to this work.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Glam Reaper podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Muldowney, aka the Glam Reaper. And on today's episode, third time is a charm, we have the gorgeous and one of my dear friends, Lauren from Lamort, joining us again on the Glam Reaper podcast. And I'm super excited about this episode because it's something I have no clue about. And I'm excited for her to share her knowledge with you. I will stay quiet. Lauren, welcome to the show.
Hello. 3 is my favorite number. So I'm actually,
This is
uh, yeah, it's amazing.
This is good. This is good. This is good. You're obviously you've created Lamort. Tell just briefly for anybody who, shame on them, didn't see the first two episodes, and especially that second episode where you introduced the idea of Lamort, to just give my listeners a little synopsis as to what you're doing there before we delve into the wild and wacky that we're doing.
Yeah, so, for years I was training death doulas. For years before that, I was a funeral director. And so Lamort is kind of building upon everything that I've lived, all the trainings that I've done, and either taking it to the next level or in a totally new direction that I think really supports people in the end of life who are working at the end of life. So we include a lot of grief work, a lot of arts and crafts, and, training that I think we kind of forget about to cover in a lot of the death doula stuff out there that I think is really important that people are talking about, including plant medicine.
Yes, and I would say a lot of Lamort has gone in a spiritual direction as well, which ties in with what we're going to talk about now. So, okay, without further ado, tell us. Okay, you've done delved into some training of your own that you're now going to share with the masses. I'm super excited to try it. I'm honestly a bit terrified, but tell tell us what it is before I build it up anymore.
About 3 years ago, so I did mushrooms when I was a teenager, like a lot of us have, and it was fun or not fun. I don't know. There was a mixture of both. But about 3 years ago, I had a diagnosis that I wasn't expecting, and as much as I'm pro-death and super stoked about it, I have 2 kids, and I had a lot of grief about it of like, "Oh, I might not see them grow up and get old," and all of this stuff, and so I actually had a student who said, "Have you ever tried psilocybin work? I've just started looking into it for people with PTSD and grief," and I was like, "No, I thought that was like a fun party thing." And so we held our first retreat, and I did psilocybin, and it changed my life. I mean, it was like a full new path for me, and I have pretty much dedicated half of my teaching and education now to this work. But for me personally, it helped me see that there was so much more, and it it's so hard to explain. I love that that's one of the my favorite things about this medicine is you go through it and everyone's like, "Wow, you've changed so much. Like, what happened?" And you're like, "Well, I don't have words for everything," and I think that that's what's really so magical. So, I pretty much cried for 6 hours straight, and and you would look at me and be like, "Whoa, she's having a bad trip," and yet it was exactly what I needed. It really took any blocks that I had and, again, opened me up to really appreciating everything, understanding this connection that we have with each other, and just how, like you said, like, how sacred and beautiful life is while we're here. But then there's so much more afterwards, and that's kind of like the reminder that you get with psilocybin work. So, about a year ago, I live in Colorado, I should throw that out there. In both Colorado and Oregon, psilocybin is legalized. And I say legalized, but you can personally grow it and own it and take it with people without charging for it. And then there is a more therapeutic route where you can take it in a healing center with a licensed guide. So I've been going through the training for the last few months so that I can work with people what we call above ground. So my retreats were below ground, meaning not technically legal, but not illegal either. But going above ground, I now will be able to promote that this is the work that I do legally. I'll be able to make ads about it. But most importantly, and why I'm doing this is to work with families and the people who are dying at the end of life with either their fears around death and dying or even just grief in general about your person dying because I know what this does. So that's that's pretty much it.
Okay, so lots of questions. So for the listeners out there as well. So psilocybin is a form of mushroom.
Yes. So, there's lion's mane and all those different mushrooms that we take for our health.
Currently.
Yes. I have my mushroom coffee blend that I take every single morning. And I love it. I always say that mushrooms of all sorts are probably our biggest allies and probably come from outer space because they support our physical body so well. And then they're also the decomposers, and their whole purpose is connection and communication. That's what mycelium does is it helps plants communicate underground, and then I feel like psilocybin helps us communicate as well to things that are beyond or even internal communication of places in ourselves that we haven't visited that need some work to be done. So, mushrooms in general, amazing. I love them all. And then magic mushrooms, that's usually what they're referred to. What happens is they have psilocybin in them, and then your body digests it, and the liver turns it into psilocin. So, psilocin is what makes people trip and have those different experiences. So, yeah, it's a specific kind of mushroom, but there's thousands of them, and they're all over the world,
Wow.
every continent
And
except for Antarctica.
oh, well, I can't imagine a whole lot grows there. I mean, I'm sure certain things do, obviously, but I need to put that on my bucket list actually. Anyway, we digress. So these mushrooms, this so just tell us a little bit about the future plan for the future for the retreats. Like what could one okay, so as somebody who's never, I don't want to say never ever done anything, but like I was a late bloomer, and I think I did like CBD. I mean, I'm really like, alcohol is sort of my only thing, bold thing that I did growing up, right? So somebody who's a complete novice like me, if I'm, and I know this is obviously a work in progress, but like, what's a retreat going to look like for me? I mean, I will obviously be shitting it. So do I drink a tea? Like, what's the yeah.
Yeah, so there's the 2 different ways to do it, the below ground and then or underground and then the above ground. So in Oregon, for example, to legally take mushrooms, you have to do it in a healing facility. So retreats, I do retreats in Oregon and Colorado. I just don't charge people for mushrooms, and that's how I can legally do it.
Okay.
But the retreats, I specifically do people who work in end of life because I find a lot of people who choose this have some grief. Like, you don't just go into this because you're like, oh, there's usually some event that draws you to this work.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I have learned in my years of training death doulas is like, you don't want to bring that shit with you
Mm,
into this space.
yeah.
And psilocybin mushrooms are one of the best ways for people to make these new connections and heal those old wounds. So, when I first started, it was really for death doulas or death workers who just wanted to do their work better. But then what I found is I would partner people up. So, you've never done mushrooms before, so maybe I would be your partner. And the next day, so you would go through the experience and I would be pretty much, at your beck and call, making sure you're okay, whatever you need. And honestly, sometimes that's people's favorite part of the retreat is because so many women are never tended to. And so I had one woman once say, when they made me a sandwich, that was the best part. And I'm like,
Oh.
all right. So the retreats themselves are this experience that you get to take with the mushrooms, but then also the experience of being cared and tended to. And then the next day, they switch roles. So the person who took the mushrooms the day before is now sitting with the person who's now on mushrooms, tending to them. It's very reciprocal. And then we do a lot of integration work for a few weeks afterwards of, whoa, what was that experience like? One of the things that my early teacher said is that doing mushrooms is like your wedding day. And then how do you live your life afterwards? Because you go through this huge experience that nobody else can understand. And when I say it's life changing, it is life changing. You will not be the same person you were before. But that's actually a really beautiful and good thing.
And
So then that's a big part of the work is how do we live like this and what parts of us were healed and how are we going to go into this work even more? And
yeah,
that's the underground, that's the retreats. A little
okay.
bit different than the above ground work.
Okay. And so tell me this, of all the people that you've witnessed do it or have done it with or whatever, has anybody not had any change? Has anybody just been like, I didn't feel anything or just no? No.
No. I've had people have what we would call hard journeys.
Oof.
I mean, if you viewed me that very first time and I was just like ugly sobbing, snot down my face, my eyes were swollen shut the next day. I mean, they were like poof shut. And I had the best experience. Like, and so from the outside, sometimes it's hard to tell. But I have had people say, that was really hard. I don't think that that was what I needed or wanted. But then a month later, they come back and all of these connections have been made and they're like, "Whoa, that was exactly what I needed and I'm healing so much from these things." So, yeah, I can proudly say no.
It it's interesting that we're having this conversation now because I noticed, and I don't know if this was AI generated. I'm so suspicious of everything I see on the internet now, whether it's videos, images. I mean, I'm honestly sick to death of seeing, and even friends of mine, and I don't know whether to call them out on it or not, but like AI produced posts on LinkedIn. I'm so sick of it because it's like, where's
Right.
the originality? Where's your brain? Like, and it's so obvious by there's certain AI things, but, like, we see it now in photos and images and videos, and it just drives me nuts. But I'm saying all that to say that, like, there was a video or 2 videos going around, and again, I don't know if they're real or not, of Leanne Rimes, the singer, and of her having, a hip release. So, like, there was 2 different videos of her getting some sort of something that released, like, we hold grief in our hips, and I have very tight hips, and so I was kind of obviously drawn to this, or it came up on my algorithm or whatever. But she bawled crying, and this was a video of her sort of just the release of it, and she looked in excruciating pain, but like then was laughing and like full of happiness afterwards. And probably we've all out there cried until our eyes have shut. Like if you've had any sort of grief or anything, like it's it's a thing that happens, and it is a bit of I actually find when I've held on to tears, or I feel like they've bulked up. I nearly have to put on a sad movie to really, because crying is a form of
Mhm.
release. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, this sounds incredible if you're comfortable at all, and it's fine if you're not. But like, do you want to take just the listeners through sort of, you said you had an illness that made you sort of think, oh my God, I might not be around for my kids. Like was that impacted, or like what was that journey like for you? And was it one session of this psilocybin, or was it the journey, or a combination, or what was your personal journey, I guess?
Oh, yeah. So it was interesting because everybody's journey is so unique. So for the licensure in the state of Colorado, you have to do practicums, AKA we all have to do mushrooms, which I love. That's part of a license. I mean, as a teenage girl, there's no way I ever could have imagined like, okay, to get your license, we need you to do this massive amount of mushrooms. So I did that. And typically at my retreats, yes, they're groups, but I always have them in nature, so either on the Oregon coast or in the forest here in Colorado, and I give people space to kind of find their own nooks or go sit by a tree or go lay in the sand, whatever feels right. This last time we did it in a group in a circular session, and it was so interesting because I really got to witness everyone's experiences, and there were some people who were, on all fours and, like, heaving. There were some people who were just kind of ecstatic and laughing, and we all took the same mushrooms in the same amount. So, that's one of the most magical things about them to me is they give you exactly what you need, even if you don't really understand. And there's always an intention. Like, you can't just come to one of my retreats and be like, I just want to have fun. You have to have an intention and a reason. It's kind of like that roadmap to your own grief in a way, too. So for me, my intention was I wanted to connect to things bigger than myself. So I knew that everything would be okay. Like
Mm.
that was what my intention was. So for the first probably hour, so it's a psilocybin journey. They say that, right? There's this part you go up and then you kind of peak and then you stay there for a little bit and then you go back down. So as I'm going up, I found myself just having no filter or judgment of what I was saying. So I was just able to say all of my fears. Like, I won't be there for my kids if something I'm gonna cry. If something happens to them or, like, who's gonna be there if their car breaks down? Like, all the things, and I just was like, "Woo, woo, woo," releasing them. One of the things that I love about our retreats is everybody has journals. So, on the day that you're on the medicine and you're saying whatever comes to your brain or, like, these profound thoughts, I'm over here writing them down for you so that I can give them back to you the next day for you to reflect on. And unlike alcohol, you actually do remember everything that you experience, which you can't say that with everything. But with psilocybin, I can still think back and see these profound moments that I've had.
You don't even get that with your dreams, which really bothers me.
No, no, but that's kind of what it is. It's like you're going into this liminal space and you actually get to well, what's happening is your brain lights up and you're making all these brand new connections. These neurotransmitters are finally connecting with each other or things that have been fractured because of deep grief or because of trauma. These mushrooms are like do 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 and put it all back together for you. So even things that you understood as a child that maybe got taken away from you from different we all have grief. I I don't care if people are like, "Oh, I don't have any grief." I'm like, "Yes, you do. You
Yeah.
have grief from when that kid was mean to you in 1st grade and you didn't know how to process it." And that's the stuff that all of a sudden will come up sometimes or just completely gets retold, and it's interesting because trauma, what it normally does is just repeats the same story over and over again, even if it's not all true. So for me, that was kind of the thing is like, I was telling myself a story of how the kids would not be okay.
Yeah.
And doing this and talking it out, and then as I continued this journey, had my, like, grandma come to me, and then I saw, everything that was beyond, and then realized, like, time is not real, and so I will be there with my kids. I made all the connections that I needed to make and left those loops of worry and dread and all of that behind. And it's I think that's why right now psilocybin is being studied more for PTSD and trauma work. Of course, it's not federally legal or anything like that, so it's hard to get the funding, but because of what I just shared, that's where they're seeing the most benefits. Soldiers, oh my gosh, like, it's like night and day of not being able to function in this world to being healed. I mean,
Wow.
it sounds like this miracle, and I think kind of is. I mean, personally for me, it was such like I said, it was such a game changer that I said, "Oh, I think I'm dedicating my life to this now." My story of becoming a funeral director and all of that was based on grief and love, and I that was, like, changed the direction of my life, and this is what I did. This experience completely changed the direction of my life because it was a reminder of something that I didn't know I needed, but was desperately searching for.
Yeah.
And again, it was only for me, and it was only my experience. The other people got, again, exactly what they needed dealing with trauma of a loss or self-worth. I mean, it's beautiful what people get to experience. And so for me, it really not only did I have this, okay, I'm talking it out, I'm making these connections. I then went into this really deep space. And this is when, you see the colors or the I don't know. This is where you don't have words because maybe we're not supposed to have words to describe all the things that we see on the other side. Some people see God, some people see symbols. Whatever it is a true experience, and your brain is processing that whole experience, like I said, and you come out with this brand new brain. Even like I said, the really hard looking ones, or maybe even the fun, silly looking ones. The one that I did with the group was the silliest one I ever did in my life. I went in saying, my intention is to meet the healers of my family so I can bring that knowledge forward as I start doing this healing work with others. And all I got was a whole bunch of my male ancestors like making fart noises at me. And like the whole purpose though was don't take this so seriously. Like, don't take life so seriously, Lauren. Like, this medicine has nothing to do with you other than that you're holding the space.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great things that we keep learning over and over again is like, don't get this God complex. You're not doing anything.
Yeah. Exactly.
You're making sure that you're holding the space, that this person has intentions, that maybe there's, some ceremony around it, but I'm not changing you. The experience is. And so it was silly and exactly what I needed again.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, it sounds so transformational. Like, this is the thing. I'm like, it's funny, I guess, for me as somebody who never really experimented in school, which is when you do, that now at 43 years of age, I'm like, maybe this is the time I delve in. But I feel like I'd rather do it now. I'd rather be a late bloomer on
Mhm.
all the things because do anything when you're ready. Right. Like that's the point. I feel like do anything when you're ready. You don't need to listen to anybody else. What states is it legal?
Right now, Colorado and Oregon and New Mexico is just starting this year, and then Washington State probably next. But I wouldn't be surprised if it changes. I think there was somebody recently who was talking about it in the House of Representatives of like, this is so healing and there are so many roadblocks because of the government. Like John Hopkins has done so much research, but if the government isn't approving it, you can't get more grants and funding and all this other stuff. So it's like there's this glimmer that we see, and then there's not support from the federal government. So there's all these roadblocks. So I'm hoping to see it legalized in more and more states as we continue this work because it's miraculous. It really is how it can change people.
And it's interesting because we actually had a previous guest on the podcast talking about similar vibe, like a spiritual experience going into a room, sensory, no sensories, no, what's the word? No.
Sensory deprivation.
That is the word. Yeah, and it's so interesting because I mean, I've said this 100 times if I've said it a million. Like, I sometimes wish I went and did psychology or something like really investigating the brain instead of my degree in business. Because I'm just so fascinated with how we're all so unique and so different and yet how we bundle ourselves into these boxes and and tribes and sort of, and I get the reason why, but it's just when it comes to grief and death and loss, how we just experience everything so, so, so differently. So this is just fascinating to me. And I personally want to try it. And I would trust you, tell me though, like mushrooms, I mean, I'm actually not a massive fan of mushrooms in like as a food item. My dad loves them. He like eats them. I'm not into them. I'll sneak them into things if I have to, but I do my mushroom coffee. That has become a new thing for me. But even we had many years ago, I think it was like 10 years ago, I remember seeing it at the NFDA, or maybe it was even more than that. Maybe, I don't know. We had the mushroom suit that, remember, somebody had developed that was actually fiction or never actually transpired. But
Well, it can't work because mushrooms don't grow underground.
yeah,
Like,
but that was
and
the,
so the aerial part of putting this mushroom suit, even 3 feet, it's not going to work. It literally the body would need to be laid out on the forest floor.
Because I know there has been others. I mean, there's been caskets, I think, made of mushrooms and stuff, but the same thing
Mhm,
why, but at least it's using plants and more natural materials, I guess, is the vibe. It's not gonna help
mhm.
composition, but it's gonna help the environment, I guess, in general, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like I said, there's thousands of mushrooms. I mean, we haven't even discovered I think they said we've discovered a quarter of the amount of mushrooms that are out there. Yeah. But they have such a pivotal role. Like I said, there are communicators, but they are I guess maybe this is why I love them too, is there are decomposers. And one of the things I always say is people often connect to their ancestors when they take psilocybin. They may not understand why. Like I said, I've had my grandma come through. I've had ancestors that I've never met come through. And my logic, because I am that's the whole reason I took this training too, is like, I need to know the science. I need to understand why the brain works this way. And then, of course, the spiritual aspect of it is just kind of more of a knowing and an understanding. But I needed to know the fine details.
It is so fascinating though. I mean, the facts that you're saying mushrooms, we've only discovered a quarter. I mean, what? We've only discovered a quarter of them?
So the reason I think I love mushrooms so much is, of course, what they do, but working in death, they are the decomposers of the world. That is their job. And so a lot of people will see their ancestors or experience, recently dead people coming through, friends. I did have 2 of my dead friends come through this last session for me. And my logic behind it is that because they're the decomposers and all of us have died on this earth, that they literally do carry parts of our ancestors, right? If
Mm.
there's the 109 billion dead bodies on this planet of the 8 billion that are alive, then if the mushroom's job is to break all those people down and then we consume them, I mean, that might be a little woo woo, but the death part of that, I'm like,
There are
yes,
some people
this
watching
makes
this. There are some people watching this eating mushroom pizza who have just now stepped away and been like, "Gran, is that you?" What?
exactly, exactly. They're pretty amazing, all of the magical things that they can do. But not everybody loves mushroom pizza or the taste of mushrooms. I personally so you have to dry them out, right? You have to dry them out first. And so usually when I serve them or in a service center, you'll get like a little plate. It'll have your mushrooms, but then I'll have some like dark chocolate and some raspberries and some lemon and hot water so you can really get it down. But there are chocolates now, there are gummies, there's teas, there's lemon teching where you do add a whole bunch of lemon juice and drink it that way. So we can serve everyone, even if you're the one that are like, mushrooms make me gag. There's no way. I don't know. I always take them in their pure form, and I've never had a problem. But I also love mushrooms, so
Very, very interesting. Well, we are doing a retreat, Lauren. We're doing a retreat this August to Ireland. Are we going to be bringing some mushrooms? Do I need to?
I
It's
I we wouldn't bring them with us, but there may be a little birdie on the ground trying to see if we can find some when we're there. Even the smallest dose, like a microdose,
yeah,
works. Like, you don't have to have this full experience where you're tripping and seeing God. You
yeah.
can also take small doses, which is what a lot of people do in lieu of an antidepressant, but it's still working on your brain. It's still for me, I'm like, oh, it just makes everything a little bit more glittery in this world, a little bit more brighter, a little bit more easier to handle. And in Ireland, Ireland is definitely one of those countries that has used psilocybin in their work, like the Druids. Oh my gosh. This was
Really?
so our ancestors very closely have always worked with these plant medicines. Yeah.
I mean, it would make sense. I mean, that's the kind of the ridiculous thing about commercializing everything and how, tech and all of this we've gotten and, with that electricity and stuff. Like at the end of the day, when, take all of that away, modern developments, I mean, that's all we had were the plants, the animals, the ground, and I mean, that's it.
And
So,
each other.
yeah.
Yeah.
it doesn't shock me that,
Mhm.
we it doesn't shock me that, especially the Irish people, that we found ways to have a good time off the land.
I mean, I could go down a whole other avenue right now, but because mushrooms have been on every single continent and healers, medicine men, wise women have consumed these mushrooms and then spread the word. What did I experience? What did I see? And so there's even these thoughts that a lot of modern religions came from consuming mushrooms and having these experiences and sharing what they had. So I don't know. But of course, they're everywhere. And I believe that they probably greatly changed human experiences and how we connected with each other and how sacred things were. And then, of course, we did the American thing where we're like, no, those are evil. And good old President Nixon really put his foot down and said, we're never having this.
Hmm.
And I think it's because of how healing it is and how expansive it is. And when you're a healed person, it's a lot harder to have somebody control you. Throwing that out there.
Yes. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, anything that leaves the world a glittery or more sparklier place, we are down for. So I don't know. I'm definitely very interested and intrigued, and maybe we'll come along to a retreat and do some filming even sometime, or maybe I'll film me doing, or
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll figure something out. But it's definitely something of interest that we will look into more. And yeah, thank you for sharing it with us, Lauren. This has been really, really great. Yeah, thank you for joining us. And anybody who is not coming on our retreat, because as you may or may not know, it's sold out within like what, 24 hours or something ridiculous.
Yep.
But yeah, you'll watch this space because you'll see lots of footage of me and Lauren and Ireland, I guess.
We'll see what happens. Yeah.
Exactly. But thank you so much for joining us. This was amazing.
Thank you for letting me talk about this, and I hope everybody has the conversation after watching this of, "Oh, I didn't know that mushrooms did that," and do some research or reach out
Yes.
to me because I will talk
We
about this forever.
Yeah. We will leave all your information below. I mean, they should know how to get you anyway, but Lauren of Lamort, we will leave all your information below. And yeah, thank you so much. This was so cool.